Alfred, IMANI this evening has revealed that most of the promises contained in the manifestos of 3 political groupings in Ghana are vague and thus not quantifiable. The political groupings are the New Patriotic Party, NPP, the National Democratic Congress, NDC, and Movement for Change. This was disclosed at an event to disseminate content of a report dubbed IMANIFESTO earlier today. Judith Brown has more in this report.
Speaking at the event, Senior Research Associate at IMANI Center for Policy and Education, Dennis Asare, explained most promises by 3 political parties, specifically the New Patriotic Party, the National Democratic Congress, and the Movement for Change, are vague and do not provide specificity.
If you look through the manifestos, the NPP made over 500 promises, the NDC made over 800 promises, and if you try to look at their feasibility and clarity of the promises, you see that most of them are non-quantifiable. That is, you cannot specifically see the kind of service or exactly what the party wants to do, and that is what we mean that those a lot of the manifestos are non-quantifiable, and so they've made promises, but you can't specifically put a point to it and say that this is what the party really wants to do. And that is a challenge because where we are, we know our current macroeconomic situation and our governance challenges, and you would expect that these 2 political parties would understand the terrain and prepare manifestos that adequately respond to our current challenges and not sloganeering.
According to him, the report categorized the various promises as quantifiable, semi-quantifiable, and non-quantifiable. However, most promises, he said, bordering especially on the economy, are non-quantifiable. Per the report, 231 out of 347 economic policies promised by the NDC are non-quantifiable. 231 out of 261 economic policies by the MPP are non-quantifiable, and 147 out of 178 economic policies from the Movement of Change are also non-quantifiable. The Centre is therefore calling for more scrutiny from citizens ahead of the elections.
We see that a lot of them are non-quantifiable because, as I already mentioned, the parties don't specifically say what they want to change around these economic thematic areas. But what we also see is that there's a lot of commonalities. There are a lot of commonalities around in terms of the establishment of a fiscal council, the fiscal rule, and also things around expenditure management and all of that. Clearly, what we are saying is that none of these political party manifestos really go to the core of addressing our structural challenges, and that none of these parties clearly come up with solutions that effectively address the macroeconomic and governance challenges that we face. And so it is very important that citizens ask questions. It's very important that within the next 30 days, as we prepare to go to the polls, we ask realistic questions that actually go to the core of these issues and investigate it properly.
The exercise focused primarily on the economy, governance, energy and infrastructure, education and social services. Judith Brown, TV3.
Well, Alfred, let's stay a while longer on this and bring in Dennis Asare, who is a Senior Research Associate at IMANI Africa. Dennis, if you can hear me, good evening. Thank you for joining us on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Dennis, so let's go straight into it. What do you mean when you say most of these promises are not quantifiable?
Thank you very much. Good evening to your listeners. And the purpose of the critical analysis for us at IMANI is to critically bring clarity to what political parties are proposing. These are their business plans for turning around our economy and restoring stability, as well as enhancing public accountability. And given the precarious nature of where we stand as a country, what we need is more clarity into what parties want to do and avoid sloganeering so that citizens can make informed choices. And so doing a deep dive into the manifestos of these 3 political parties, what you clearly see is that for most of the promises, you don't really see exactly what kind of service that the party wants to do. And what I mean by that is that with that promise, what exactly do you want to do? And so that lack of clarity and specificity of what they want to do around key sectoral issues, that is what we mean that most of the promises are not quantifiable, they are not clear. You don't get to see what really will be done if this particular manifesto is implemented. And historically, from our manifesto assessment, we realized that about 56% of manifesto promises, they almost and at all times end up in the coordinated program for social and economic development, which will now influence budget and other key development programs of the government. And so it is very important that as we develop as a country, political parties are more clearer with their plans so citizens can make informed choices. But more importantly, we are able to align what parties want to do to what really are the challenges we face as a country. That is the structural problems that need to be addressed. And so this critical analysis go in to critically examine these promises and identify which ones are very, very clear and that you can see that sense of service that the parties want to deliver, and which ones are just mere statements that really do not actually demonstrate exactly what the party wants to do.
And then if we have to talk about specifics or specific policies or promises, which ones came up for you in your report?
Okay, so if I take the NPP, a very clear, specific, or let me say, quantifiable promise that they make is that they want to cut budget expenditure by 3% of GDP, that is estimated around 30 billion. That is very clear and specific. And so if they should win elections and they are in government, citizens can clearly hold them accountable and say that you said you're going to cut public expenditure by 3%. That's equivalent to about 30 billion. That would be outsourced to the private sector to also support public finances. These are very clear promises that you can at all times monitor and hold government accountable. If you look at the case of the NDC, they also make very clear categorical statement like they're going to abolish the e-levy, COVID levy, 10% levy on veteran winnings and emissions levy. This is very clear promise that you know exactly what the party wants to do. And so this is that level of clarity that we are trying to get political parties to also do. So, for example, some of the promises that are not clear, in the case of the NDC, said overhaul the entire framework of foreign exchange management, including market operations, the legal framework, strengthen the role of VOG. You don't exactly see the and so what. So what really do you want to do? What really do you want to do? If you're saying you're overhauling it, what really are you going to do with that overhaul? What should we expect? So that level of clarity is what that we are trying to look for to see. Then another unclear promise by the NPP is to, for example, said require all sustainably mined small-scale gold to be sold to VOG, and then also the Minerals Income and Investment Fund to continue to work with the bank to fully entrench the gold purchase program. And so what to do, what exactly is that going to deliver? And so those are some of the lack of clarity that you don't get with the political parties manifesto, but there are instances where they really make categorical statements that you can see this is the service they want to offer, and this is what citizens can hold them accountable for.
So how do we get the clarity and the harmony that you're looking for from these political parties? Did the report make any recommendations into these?
Yes, so I think that if you look at where we have come, and these two parties since 1992 have been in government, and so they understand our economic situations or our development challenges much more better than any other political party. And you would expect that over 30 years, they should be able to be clear with their plans, know exactly what they want to do, and also put forward proposals that actually go to address the structural problems affecting our development. And so what we are proposing is that this gives the chance for political parties to reflect on their plans and also go deeper and find out what exactly can they do within 4 years, or what is possible within 4 years. So I think that for us, what political parties can do is that as part of preparing manifestos or communicating manifestos, it is important for them to also reflect and think about the current macroeconomic as well as our development constraints and look at what is possible. And given the experience that they have or being in government before, I think they have what it takes to really know what is possible and what is impossible. For example, the current the NPP is in government. They know our macroeconomic constraints and development challenges, and so it will be very, very difficult for them to see that they can't tell specifically what they think they can do within a period of 4 years. And so I think that we want to push for more reflections and more improvement in how political parties couch their promises. And so since 2008 that we've been doing critical analysis, we've seen some improvement in terms of what people say they are going to do, what is possible and what is not possible. So over time, I'm sure that as we amplify the advocacy, we'll get to a point where political parties' business proposals are very clear, succinct, and go to the core of our structural development constraints.
Dennis, maybe my final one. How differently would this have been if we had a national development plan that these parties were committed to and their policies were aligned with?
Well, in the case of a national development plan, because political party proposals are the party's aspirations and what they think they can contribute to the nation's transformation, it is very difficult to tie them to a specific national development plan. It would have helped if they are committed to it. And you know that historically, we have never been committed to any national development plan. So even if we had a plan and they were committed to it, we would have seen much more alignment and clarity in terms of what is possible and what is not possible. But be that as it may, even in the absence of a national development plan, they have the experience, they've been in government before, and they know what is possible, given the circumstances we find ourselves in. And so I think that it is that commitment to making their plans clear and what is possible and what is not possible. I think that's what we are pushing for the advocacy. Just also because citizens can clearly see through these promises or the lofty promises and be able to make informed choices. That is what we are interested in.
All right, Dennis, thank you for sharing those insights with us. Dennis Asare is a senior research associate